For coming. I appreciate everybody coming out tonight to talk about the trail. Real quick overview, just want to lay it out on how we generally work meetings like this. So we'll do some quick introductions. We'll do introductions with the department staff that are here, and then we'll do introductions from the city and the city staff that are involved in the projects. Again, the project is for the trail under 4th Street. So I really appreciate everybody coming out. If you haven't seen the public notice for this, I hope you have. Written comments, verbal comments, we'd like to hear your feedback. This is not a meeting on dam reconstruction. This is not a meeting on dredging. This is not a meeting on sediment contamination. This meeting is here to talk about the trail that is being proposed that's under review right now. The person leading the review is Jeff Schur. He's on the Zoom meeting. He'll introduce himself in just a minute. But we'll go through the overview. The city will give an overview of the project. And then after that, we'll open it up to folks in the room that like to give comments or ask questions of the project. And then after that, we'll go to Zoom. And from there, we will ask folks on Zoom to raise hands. And then we will call on the folks on Zoom. And they can ask questions or make comments through Zoom at that point. So with that, we'll do some quick introductions. So good afternoon, everybody. I'm Travis Schrader with Wisconsin Department of Natural Resources. I am the Waterway and Wetland Field Supervisor for Southern Wisconsin. So I manage water management specialists like Jeff that are reviewing this project and our dam safety engineers for the southeast part of the state. And sitting next to me, we have Will Disser. Will, would you introduce yourself?
Hi, my name is Will Disser. I'm the Regional Water Management Engineer out of the Fitchburg office with Wisconsin DNR. I cover South Central counties, including Dane County.
Jeff, can you introduce yourself on Zoom?
Folks on Zoom, can you still hear us?
Yep, we can hear you.
All right, Jeff Schur is the water management specialist. He's at the Fitchburg office. He's on Zoom. He's there keeping track of any comments, questions. He's taking notes of any information that comes along today regarding the trail in the underpass. So I'd like to pass it over to Mayor Swadley to give the city's remarks.
All right, good evening. Thank you all for being here. My name is Tim Swadley. I'm the mayor here. We do have a couple of city employees. Tony Hill is in the room. Director Brett Aber is on Zoom. There are some city council members present as well. And I would like to thank the DNR for holding the public informational meeting. And I'd also like to thank WSTO for televising the meeting. You'll be able to watch the replay stream on the website or on your TV as well. I would also like to, at this time, introduce Mason Lacey from Recreational Planning and Engineering. And Mason's going to give a brief presentation for the placement of the recreational trail on the bed of the Yahara River. So whenever you're ready, Mason, I should be able to share your screen.
Hi, thank you, Tim, and everyone. Let's see, I'll try and share my screen here. Hold on a second.
Can you all hear him okay? Yes. Okay, great. We see it.
All righty. You can see the screen there and you can hear me?
Yes.
All right. Great. Thanks, everybody. My name's Mason Lacey. I'm an engineer with Recreation Engineering and Planning. The city of Stoughton hired us to design the Yahara River Park project, including this multi-use trail and underpass that we are discussing tonight. I'm going to give a brief overview of the project, including a review of the existing conditions and the proposed design. So this is a Google Earth aerial image of the project site and the surrounding area. 4th Street is in the center where it crosses the Yahara River, and the Yahara River is flowing from left to right. The Stoughton Dam can be seen just upstream of 4th Street, as well as the existing head race and tail race, where water can be directed under 4th Street and through the old powerhouse. So the permit application we are discussing tonight includes filling the old head race and tail race and constructing a trail underpass through one of the existing box culverts under 4th Street. The goal is to create a continuous multi-use path through the project area with a separated grade crossing of 4th Street. Not included in this permit application is any modification to the Stoughton Dam structure itself or any change to
Recording in
upstream
progress.
water levels. Any changes proposed to the dam or upstream water levels in the future will require additional DNR permits beyond what is included in this permit application at discussion here tonight. Any future permit applications regarding changes to the dam or upstream water levels will have their own public meetings and process. Please focus comments tonight on the trail underpass and head race, tail race fill as shown here. So this is the existing 4th Street crossing of the Yahara River, consisting of 3 concrete box culverts with concrete bottoms. The trail underpass is proposed through the north box culvert, which is on the left side when viewed from upstream and the right side when viewed from downstream. Upstream and downstream of the existing culverts, there is riprap, concrete, and masonry walls in various states of disrepair, and concrete debris in the river and along the bank. Within the culvert itself is much as you would expect, with vertical concrete walls and a concrete bottom. These are graphic renderings depicting the proposed design. These renderings were developed by architecture based on our design for the project. You can see the proposed multi-use trail passing through the existing culvert. Upstream and downstream of the culvert, there would be a concrete wall separating flow in the river from the trail during normal flows. This wall is designed to overtop during high flows in the river, at which point the trail underpass would be closed. This allows flood flows to utilize all 3 culverts and not impact the floodplain. Similar projects have been constructed in many areas across the country. Existing bridges and road crossings of waterways are an appealing place for trail underpasses since the grade separation already exists, making it cheaper and simpler than constructing the underpass elsewhere. Plus, being along a river makes for a more pleasant experience for trail users. All of these trail underpasses shown are designed to go underwater during flood flows, closing the trail during short periods of time. But the vast majority of the year, the trails are dry and function as a safe, non-motorized transportation corridor. A separated grade crossing of 4th Street is necessary for public safety. Pedestrian and cyclist traffic is expected to grow significantly, with the adjacent redevelopment site adding several hundred housing units and other proposed projects in the area, including Mant Park and the Yahara River Park. The proposed trail will also become one portion of the Lower Yahara River Regional Trail Corridor, which envisions a continuous multi-use trail going upstream and downstream along the river. Mant Park and its parking would act as a major trailhead. An at-grade crossing of 4th Street would be much more dangerous and would also cause traffic delays during periods of time with high use, such as during events like the annual fair at Mant Park. The underpass enables a continuous ADA compliant trail along the river and will allow for safe riverside access for people fishing and enjoying the river, in addition to people on the trail passing through. The proposed project has been designed to avoid and minimize impact to wetlands and public waters to the extent practicable while meeting the project purpose. The river at the project site is currently heavily impacted with concrete walls and a concrete riverbed already within the culvert and riprap and concrete debris upstream and downstream of the culvert, providing minimal quality aquatic habitat. And with that, I'd like to turn it back over to the DNR to facilitate public comment.
Thanks, Mason. I appreciate the overview. Is there anyone in the room that would like to ask a question or give a comment? Please raise your hand. Okay. Would you feel free to come on up to the microphone? And
You can use that one.
Well, I'm not right here, I can use one.
The people on Zoom won't be able to hear you,
Yeah,
but you
the
can
people
pull
on-
that up to you and
Yeah,
then
you hit
push it. Yep, the red button's on, and then people on Zoom will be able to.
Good, can you hear me? How wide is the trail? That's all I'm asking.
We're proposing a 10-foot wide trail.
all right, does anybody else have any questions in the room? All right, ma'am?
Thank you. Do I have to state my name? Faith Schacht, Town of Pleasant Springs. My question is this portion through the city of Stoughton going to tag into Dane County's bicycle trail system that they're proposing to bring through my township in the next year? Is this part of that?
I think what Mason said, it would be part of the lower Yahara River Trail. Would be the plan is to eventually make that connection. That's a county project.
Correct, that is a county project, but you are in the county of Dane County, so that's why I'm asking.
We're trying to make all of our trails that can connect to that system be connected.
Okay, well, that answers my question, thank you.
All right, there's another, ma'am, if you want to come forward, please.
My name is Catherine Foster. I live in Stoughton. Actually, I'm a riparian owner. I can see 4th Street. I can see this project from my house. I was not listed on the letter as a riparian owner. They're just saying that the city is a riparian owner. This underpass is part of the Phase 2 river development plan that primarily consists of the Whitewater Park. The trail it is to connect to does not yet exist. The land on which it is to be built is underwater contaminated sediment that won't be exposed unless the dam is lowered to build the Whitewater Park. In all the information in the narrative, it just says the trail upstream, but that's the truth, isn't it? But there won't be a trail unless there's a Whitewater Park. More than 3,000 people have signed a petition opposing the Whitewater Park. And these are the facts. This project narrative submitted with a permit application is full of false or unproven assertions. The DNR should require proof of these assertions, but alas, there is none. The experiences of the river's current users, supporting information and common sense indicate the opposite of true is true of many statements in the narrative. And if I just look at some of the things said in the narrative, it's going to lead, the proposed features are expected to lead to a significant amount of recreational users. There's been no market study done, and there is no proof that there will be a great deal of people coming to use this feature. It's said that it will enhance the waterway's availability to the public, providing users that will enhance public trust benefits, except for anyone who's using it now. The people upstream, at the mill pond, downstream, you're trading the public trust of real users for imaginary users of a whitewater park. It says the proposed trail will not materially obstruct navigation, except the project will result in the elimination of the mill pond, and it will make the river into a one-way channel 2.5 feet deep in an average rainfall year. And that's per Mason Lacey. It said it will enhance the public trust benefits by increasing opportunities for the public for fishing, boating, and other recreational uses. It's a one-way channel. You can use kayaks and inner tubes. You can't use a rowboat. You can't use a small motorboat through any of these features. So and one last thing in this, other than the public trust, said public trust benefits. It says other riparian owners. The city does not anticipate adverse impacts to other riparian owners, and the city owns both sides of the road adjacent to the proposed trail site. The city expects that development of recreational amenities will have a positive effect on property values for nearby owners. Common sense just says that the length of time for this construction, I will be looking at this exposed sediment that's supposed to be the trail. It will take years. The bridge to nowhere that everybody calls it, so far, it's been several years now, and it's just a sterile wasteland. And it will eliminate the mill pond. It will lower the water level in the Yohara Bay, and it will affect everybody up and downstream, all the people that use this waterway now, and they are the public trust beneficiaries. Thank you.
Thank you. All right. Yes, sir.
My name is Lane Close. I live at 208 North Lynn Street, which is a block and a half off the river, upstream of the proposed project. I think there was an important question that was just raised in the last speaker, is that if we're permitting this culvert to be used to make the trail, and the trail doesn't exist because where that trail will go is going to be on what is now underwater on the stream bed, I think we need very carefully to look at that, because then that means you're proceeding with the project as a whole. And I think there's a lot of people, including myself, who have a lot of questions once we look under the hood of this project and realize that so much of it makes no sense whatsoever. I'd just like to go through just a couple of little things, since we want to keep this as brief as possible. Basically, you're talking about destruction, and she highlighted some of that. Is that we're taking an existing, well-used, flatwater resource that is used by hundreds of people, kayakers, canoeists, rowboaters, fishermen. The trails along the edges of this are used by hikers, dog walkers, nature lovers, bird watchers. If you take and proceed with this project, which will, and depending on which report you look at, will lower the water level in the mill pond and in the bay to some extent, and it depends on which report you look at, it's going to adversely affect the ability of that flat water to be used as a resource as it currently is now. So in effect, what you're doing is you're taking a widely used resource that already exists, that is free for everyone to use, and has been here for many years, and you're going to destroy it or adversely affect it simply to create something for a narrow band of people who we don't even know if they'll show up or not. Number two is cost. Already we're several $100,000 into this project. The cost, depending on which report you look at, could be as high as $7 million. For what? For a very narrow band of people who may or may not show up? Oh, wait a minute, we'll make all this money back with all the increased tourism to Stoughton. Not going to happen. If I'm a kayaker and I'm whitewater rafting, I'm not going to want to go to a restaurant and sit down after I've been in the water. The other thing being that if you looked at the past year, there is a stated water level or water flow level that needs to be maintained to make this feature work. That was met in less than 7 days over the past summer. So it wouldn't even be operating except for 7 days out of the thing. Oh, wait a minute. There's things for kids and there's for tubing and for rafting. I don't know if any of you have ever been dunked into that river in the middle of August, but if you do it once, you don't want to do it again. The reason being is control. We have no control over the river's flow and or what comes down to us. There are 4 lakes, 3 dams above us. The city of Madison and the rest of the lakes around Madison, they want the level of their lakes to be at a certain point. They have control over that because they control the dams and how much water is let down to us. So what do we get? Whatever they give us. And they also give us all the runoff from the farm fields. The Ohio River goes up north of the city, Pheasant Branch Creek. I know I lived on Pheasant Branch Creek for most of my childhood. It wasn't a good thing then as far as the water quality. I wouldn't drink out of it. Certainly wouldn't now. It's no better. So all of that effluent, the nitrogens, the phosphates, everything that runs off of residential lawns and streets goes into Lake Mendota, goes into Lake Monona, goes into Lake Wapisa, comes down to us. And there's no way we have any control over that. So who's going to want to sit in that effluent of phosphate and algae and cyanobacteria? Nobody that I know of. Now, the last thing is health. And I hit a bit on that from some of the goofy stuff that comes down from the lakes in Madison that we have to deal with in this river. But the other point was hit on by our previous speaker. We really don't know what's in the sediments in that mill pond. We know there's bad stuff there. We just don't know how much, and we don't know where. Do we really want to open Pandora's box on that? Because once you open it and let that stuff out, you can't put it back. There's no way to do that. And we know there's stuff there. I mean, how many EPA sites are there on that river? I mean, you can go look them up. They're listed right there, and it also lists some of the stuff that was supposedly remediated out of there. I don't want that being thrown up into the air that I have to breathe because I live in that area. That's why I'm opposed to this whole project, and if this permitting is the first step in this project, then I am against it. Thank you for your time.
You have a lady here who'd like to speak.
Yep, absolutely. I'm just trying to make sure there was some comments in there.
The comment was just to try to keep it to the topic on hand.
Oh, yeah. All right.
My name is Laura Davis, and I'm a business owner here in Stoughton, and I also live on the river downstream at the part of the Dunkirk Dam Lake District. And I've been very interested in this project because there's common sense, and there are different ways of looking at this project, and I'm of a certain common sense that this would be fantastic for Stoughton. I'm a cyclist. I would love to have a trail that goes all the way from the west side of the east side of the river to Madison, and I think it would be beautiful, and I think that it would attract families and younger people, and I happen to have a Airbnb on Main Street, and a lot of the visitors that I have are cyclists and canoeists, and they really are loving what's happening to Stoughton in terms of the growth of the community and the opportunities, and just the city itself is getting there's a lot of art. There's a lot of good things in Stoughton that attract people here. And I believe younger families are going to be wanting to come here, and we need that for our schools. We don't want to close schools. We want to have our schools expanded. But I want to stay on topic of the tunnel, but I do have just a comment to make about the comments have been about the broader project. And just in observing the process of that, I mean, things have changed dramatically over time in different phases. When oppositions were raised or complaints or particulars, then things were redesigned and things were changed and things were adapted, and there have been changes made to address to maintain the water level during lower flows and things like that. And rather than, and then so then the arguments become about common sense, but how you can't, that's not scientific, that doesn't guide you. And but what's frustrating me is that all the changes and the adaptations, I think the city has been very accommodating in trying to make this a project that would meet those, answer those issues. And we might lose the mill pond, but we're going to gain a river, an actual river. The flows that flow a river, cooler and faster and a better environment for game fish and for fishermen. Living on the river downstream, it's amazing how few people come down. There's hardly any public access to put in. People could kayak all the way from Madison to the Mississippi River if this project goes through. I think it would, my common sense is it would be a great thing for Stoughton and for people who use it. But even though all the accommodations are made, then the response is, well, I just don't like it. I just don't like it. And relying on common sense arguments, because it affects them personally, I think we're failing to look at the broader good for the city of Stoughton. So thank you.
Thank you, everybody. And just a reminder, it is truly about the underpass. It's not about tourism. It's not about safety. Please try to keep it to the underpass and the department. I know that the city may want comments. We're trying to fill out the comments for the Chapter 30 permit, and please be respectful of all the comments. So if everybody's respectful, this is productive. Thank you. Sure.
Hi, Ralph Erickson. I live on the river upstream in the area of Division Street Park. Looking at the culvert that would be used as a trail connection, we've heard that the width is 10 feet. What's the height of the culvert? Does it stay intact? Does the concrete bottom come out of it?
Mason, do you have a height on the tunnel?
Yeah. 7.5 feet.
Okay, that works for me. Barely. And I think somebody from the city could possibly talk more on this, but I know there's a study out for trail connectivity along the river northwards towards Cooper Causeway. As a daily walker at Cooper's Causeway Division Street, it's not a safe place for walking. Cars rule there. So we're looking for trail connectivity in that area. And this project, I believe, can get connected to some degree with dry land that Uniroyal might be offering up as a trail connection along their fence line. So hope maybe somebody from the city could talk on that connectivity from this underpass towards Water Street.
If we have time, I'd love to hear connectivity, but I really want to limit it to the impacts on the river, effects of that. I mean, I know that people have asked questions about that. We're really here to focus on the impacts of the public waterway and the filling on the bed. So I know there's lots of questions. Where does the trail go? What does it connect to? All of those things, and that's better suited at maybe a planning meeting, or maybe if Mayor Swadley wants to answer it quickly, that's great. But I just want to make sure everybody has time to speak. It's a Thursday night, so I appreciate it. But
one last one.
Yeah, I'll just make it quick. The City Council did approve to have a study done on the trail connectivity all the way through the downtown. We have had discussions with Uniroyal in the past about accessing the land that goes behind their building.
One question on these structures, when they flood, I imagine they're a bit of a mess with silt. Is it a standard process that the community, the city, then has to come through and do a bit of a cleanup of the underpass after high water conditions? Thank you.
Yeah, I can briefly answer that, but yes, if there's a flooding event, for just normal rain events, things like that, there's going to be the water will drain and there'll be a sump pump that'll pump that water out. But after a flooding event, any sediment that accumulates in the trail would need to be swept out.
My name is Roger Springman. I live here in Stoughton, and I do have some written comments that talk about the whole trail project, but I'll skip those in lieu of your interest in talking more specifically about the ordinary high water mark and the area right around the 4th Street culvert. So one of the things I have done in Stoughton is work very hard to help preserve history. There's a 1911 powerhouse that sits, I'm thinking as you know, right at the base of the 4th Street Bridge, right next to the head race, tail race, that provided water for the powerhouse to once upon a decade do its work. And this trail actually is going to make great improvements in that ordinary high watermark zone down to the 4th Street culvert. And I say that because I was involved in working with the number of people to get the powerhouse put on the National Register of Historic Places. I'm very concerned about the future of the powerhouse. As a Stoughton citizen and as a longtime history buff, that's very important to me. There's significant erosion starting to occur on the backside of the powerhouse down to the tail race that really can be positively impacted by the development of a well-designed trail that would go to the 4th Street culvert. Likewise, above it, we've got the head race that takes water from the mill pond area, funnels it underneath 4th Street, and then goes into the powerhouse to where the old turbine was. So what I'm suggesting in lieu of my other more general comments, I think you really need to care about what that project, the trail, can do to reestablish stability for the backside of the bluff that abuts the powerhouse. That's very important to me, and I think a lot of us here have been in Stoughton a lot more than I have, longer periods, and we can't afford to have that powerhouse get further compromised by continuing erosion. And the best thing, in my view, about that trail project then going into the culvert is that it allows a well-designed engineering company who's already been here, done the work to make that area a lot more usable, accessible, and stable for a long-term continued use of that powerhouse that eventually could be a coffee shop, it could be many things, but it'll be nothing if we don't protect it. So the backside of the powerhouse is what I'd call your attention to as a local history buff who very much cares about the nature of how the head race, tail race, and 4th Street culvert all are joined together, and that trail then that we're all talking about tonight can play a very, very helpful role in making that all reusable, revaluable, and preservative for that great historic powerhouse. So those are my comments. I'll be providing some written comments for the record beyond what I just said.
Perfect, thank you. Please send those to Jeff Schur.
Okay.
Jeff is our project manager on the notice for tonight's meeting. He is the person that's listed.
Okay.
If you need his contact information, please let us know.
Okay.
But
I'll
he would
look
take
for it.
those on email or on letterhead. And I will just give a general comment back to you. The department, as part of this permit review, and any permit review, does screen for archaeological sites or historic sites, as well as endangered resources. So that is a part of our permit review. We have asked Stoughton to minimize or mitigate or clear any impacts that may happen to any of those resources. So that is a part of what we have worked with the city of Stoughton on. So I appreciate that comment. You had a question, sir?
I had a comment.
Comment? All right.
I had asked the question before. The trail is going to be 10 feet wide. And in this scenario here, this is the picture that I'm getting on a nice busy summer day. Who's using the trail? Number one, it says that children are looping, riding down the waterway, coming back up. So we have children walking up with their little floaty things, their rings, their rafts. And then who else is using it? You also have kayakers, which are portaging their kayaks up for another run down the trail. You also have onlookers, pedestrians, and then on top of that, they say that the Man Park is going to be a major, quote-unquote, major trailhead for the cycle trail. So now you have cyclists coming down here too. It's and just reading this scenario, I mean, I get a picture of a congested mess that's dangerous because of all of the activity going. So I'm thinking that Stoughton is going to come back and say 10 feet turns out to be a little bit too small for all the traffic that we have, because maybe we have to create a separate lane for the children coming up, maybe sharing that lane with the kayakers coming up. So they're going to come back to the DNR and say, we can't use 10 feet, we got to have much more. So it just seems that in just looking at their own words, that it's going to be not safe as a pathway. And on top of that, right adjacent, they say adjacent to the pathway, there's going to be several hundred housing units. So we have a lot of these people coming down too. So I don't think that as proposed, I don't think the pathway is a good idea. It needs improvement.
And jump in with a quick point of clarification on the trail width is 10 feet, though the existing box culverts are 12 feet 4 inches wide, so the total width of the underpass is 12 feet 4 inches. But we, in addition to the 10-foot wide trail, we have shoulders through the underpass as well as upstream and downstream. And 10 feet is a pretty standard width for multi-use trails. So.
This one seems quite unique. It's not a standard use.
Hi, I'm Dave Plymers. I'm a riparian owner along Division Street, just north of downtown. I'm also an avid kayaker. I paddled the Yahara River just this afternoon, taking advantage of the conditions. I'm also a former president of the Wisconsin Public Health Association and had most of my career recently retired from a long career in public health and healthcare. I significantly support this proposed trail plan and the efforts to connect it to a broader trail network in the area. Many people may know we have significant problems with chronic disease, obesity, inactivity in Wisconsin. We also have significant problems with pedestrian and cyclist safety, being struck by cars and all. And so I think this plan is really terrific in both creating the starting point of hopefully a broader trail network, or connecting into a broader trail network, and also providing safe passage under 4th Street. We know we have a lot of activity at times in that area. We're seeing more injuries and fatalities from automobiles striking pedestrians and cyclists in our state. So I think providing a safe alternative under 4th Street is an excellent approach. So yeah, again, I'm very much in support of this proposed program. Thank you.
Ma'am?
I have 3 questions. I don't know how you can talk about an underpass that connects to a trail and not be clear on where that trail connects the underpass. What's the location? You've had many years of planning this project, and to say that you're talking to Uniroyal about their property, whether they're going to give you any of their property. I've been to the River and Trails Task Force meeting, and I asked about where this trail was going to be, and I was told that it is a loop that's on the area of exposed sediment that won't occur unless the dam is modified, and that there will be access points to the whitewater features from that trail, from that loop. And there is really no clear definition of where that trail would connect to any other part of the trail, any Division Street, anywhere else. It's just a loop for the Whitewater Park. And I also asked this, and I couldn't get any. I've been asking this for years. I've asked council members, I took them on tours of the Mill Pond area. I asked them these specific questions. Uniroyal is screened from the river by a lot of mature trees. And I have asked, what happens to that tree line? What happened? That is all habitat. I see herons there. I see eagles in my backyard. I have asked, what happens to those trees? How do you get access to that exposed sediment to cap it off, to put asphalt trail in? How do you do that without cutting down those trees? There's been no answers for any of my questions about that. And the other, that's going to just, if this is supposed to improve habitat and make it a natural river and all that, you're going to be removing all these you're going to be removing a natural habitat that has evolved over a long period of time in the Mill Pond to build an asphalt trail for some artificial rapids. That is not a natural river. And the other question I have, or unless you can clarify it differently for me, I looked at the diagrams and looking at the order of completion of these projects, the whitewater features would be completed first before the underpass, before that mill race was filled. So unless you can tell me something differently, it's quite obvious that this is all connected. And if you're talking about a trail, I want to know where that trail is going to be. Not just upstream, not just maybe we're talking to Uniroyal. I want specifics, pictures of where that trail is going to be, because you've changed it on the website. You used to have a pretty large area showing the whole Mill Pond, and now you've got it close up. You're just showing 4th Street, and you're showing a few whitewater features, and nothing has changed about the reduction, the elimination of the Mill Pond, which is elimination of habitat for waterfowl, for a lot of the things that we hold dear. So those are my questions, and I hope you can clarify that. Thank you.
So I'm not going to clarify the first two because they're not a part of the project that we're talking about that I can understand. So I appreciate that, but at this point, the department's here seeking comments on the part of the trail that will be below the ordinary high water mark. The city has asked that we review that. That is what the hearing is about. So we are reviewing it under 3 criteria. The project will not reduce the flood flow capacity of a stream. It will be in the riparian zone of interest, and material obstruction navigation won't happen, and it will not be detrimental to the public interest. So I appreciate that there's comments on tree cutting. I appreciate that there's comments on the rerouting of trails and connections, but at this point, the department's scope that we are reviewing is the underpass under 4th Street. So at this...
Can you speak to the order of completion then, with the diagrams that are in this project?
So the diagrams that have been submitted, the city of Stoughton has asked us to look at specifically for this project, the underpass under 4th Street. The rest of the project does remain incomplete with the department under a separate review. That process will go forward at a different date. The city has asked to move forward only on this trail.
But they can't move forward on this trail because you can't move that dirt around and then build your whitewater features. So this is all backwards. That permit for the dam modification was from May of '22. We have not had a public hearing on that. This permit was from April of '23.
Correct. And the department has asked the city of Stoughton on a separate application for information, and the city of Stoughton broke this portion off of that application, has decided to move forward with this independently. So here we are reviewing the underpass
But they can't
independently.
build it independently.
I am telling you that the city of Stoughton has applied for this as an individual project, and that's how we're reviewing it.
It doesn't agree with the diagrams in your project plan at all.
I
It's
appreciate
backwards.
it, and I think at this point we're arguing, so I've tried to answer your questions. I appreciate it.
You're not making things clear.
All right, sir?
I'm Jim Post. I live in the town of Rutland. I spend a lot of time in the winter and summer biking around Dane County, and I have been very impressed with what Stoughton has been doing as far as bike trails in the last several years. And this trail access under 4th Street, I think, is a huge improvement for safety in the area of anybody that's walking on the trail. To not have to cross 4th Street is a huge benefit. It also reduces impacts with traffic, improves traffic flow, and I just am very impressed with Stoughton's desire to make this project happen. Even if the Whitewater Park doesn't happen, this would be a huge amenity for downtown Stoughton, and I look forward to it possibly being built. Thank you.
All right. Ma'am in the back corner? Okay.
My name is Cheryl Learn. It sounds to me like there's no assurance that this trail is going to go anyplace except right along where they want the Whitewater Park and, you know, underneath the 4th Street to the other side. But there's no assurance that this is really going to go much farther than that, as far as I can determine from what I've heard. This is the only area that they're talking about which is necessary for the Whitewater Park. So that's my comment.
Thank you. Yes, sir?
Hello, I'm Phil Caravello. I live at 225 East Main Street here in downtown Stoughton, just a couple of blocks from the site where we will hopefully be putting this trail underpass. I think this is a great thing for making 4th Street safer as far as getting people to go under 4th Street instead of having to cross at grade. I also think it's a good opportunity because this area is already impacted. As you guys have noticed, it's pretty much concrete all around down there. Taking one of those culverts or a section of one of those culverts and turning it into an underpass in an area that's already been impacted, I think is a great idea. I'm a avid cyclist, hiker, walker, all around through town. I've also, doesn't really have a direct impact on my comments about this project, but I'm also a kayaker, and I've kayaked all the way from Madison down to Division Street Park from a couple of times. So I also making the underpass, again, thinking about safety with the ADA portion of it, making American Disabilities Act compliant. So anything we can do to make cyclists, walkers safer is a win in my book, so I'm very much in favor of this. Thanks.
So at this point, we're an hour in. We haven't taken any comments off of the Zoom meeting. So I'd like to get some comments off the Zoom meeting since those folks have been waiting. So if we can, if anybody would like to make a comment on Zoom, I'd like you to raise your hand. Everyone. All right, Ethan.
Hey there. Thanks again for hosting this. I have been a paddler for a long time, and before living in the town of Stoughton, I currently live down the road on Chicago Street. Before living in Stoughton, I would paddle Badfish Creek, and I would pass the Ohio River because it was impassable because of the dam. Every time I paddled Badfish Creek, I finished my paddle by eating in Stoughton and visiting local restaurants. Sometimes it was Culver's, but a lot of times it was at the Poorhouse and Wendigo and Viking Brew Pub, Wildwood Cafe. So I can say that many paddlers, myself included, originally from out of town, would be visiting Stoughton and contributing to the economic development there. Further, with this pass individually, I have never been to a town or a city that didn't have a beautiful river and didn't think about it later on. Right now, you come to Stoughton, there's really no place to go to enjoy our riverfront or our river. You go to other cities and towns that really acknowledge their river and draw people there with paths, trails, parks, all of that stuff. And every time I go to those cities, I remember it, I think about it, and I revisit those places. So having something like this to draw people in, to enjoy the water, I think is a huge plus for the community. Thank you.
Thank you, Ethan. Is there anyone else online? All right. All right, I'll turn it back. Yes, ma'am?
Okay, hi. Marge Stockstead, and I'm not a riparian owner. I live in rural Dunkirk farm, just east of Stoughton. And, you know, sometimes there's bad ideas. And they keep going and going and going. And I'm here to speak about this bad idea. It really is going to hurt our treasured wildlife. We have treasures of wildlife in Yahara Bay. Swans, ducks, 20 varieties. The professional photographers that come and photograph them. Pelicans. That's our #1 loss. I haven't ran into a hunter or fisherman that is for this project. You can talk to anybody down in Janesville that has anything to do with fishing and hunting, and after what they lost their dam and they maneuvered things down in Janesville, and it's all thumbs down. It's a bad idea. And many of the riparian river owners, besides the city, have enjoyed it for decades. It's been in their family even centuries. And some came and talked to us at the Stoughton Junior Fair, where we had a Save the River booth, and we have 3,150 signatures opposed to this project. They said things like horse baloney. They said, don't let them do this to your community. They said, ridiculous. It went on, and they told stories. down in Stebbinsville, when they lost their dam, farmers that had enjoyed the river along their farm for decades were no longer able to use it at all. They had, it went from a wide river down about 8 foot across. And they had sinkholes. They couldn't use any of the area where the river used to be. They didn't have any picnics anymore, and they weren't using it to canoe. I'm just going to look at my notes again. I think it seems almost that the city council has been arrogant and ignorant about land use. Out on the farm, we don't easily walk on other people's land. We respect other people's land. We don't expect them to give up people trailing across. There's been some negative things out in our community too, where we had a creek buried just down the road from myself. We used to see pairs of turtle doves, turkey vultures, ducks in the creek, bullfrogs. When they start messing with it, we lost all of that. First there was the bullfrogs to go, and then the next was no more pairs of birds, pairs of hawks. You could see it all. They removed the water source. 8-point bucks standing there for a half an hour. Where's the creek? So this is happening all around, and water issues are happening all over the world. And what are we going to do with this whitewater park when we get a rainy weekend that it rains? It sits without use. The people from Wausau said their whitewater park sits empty with weeds growing around. There's a bad side to this. And the way it's deceptive, the way this has been laid out. I was kind of disappointed with the map. I know you can get a pinpoint with a red little arrow on the Zoom map. We really could have used that tonight to show exactly where we're talking about for the audience. And it needs to have more research into the Unival area, the mill pond. We already have these treasured wildlife right around us, and that's what we're going to lose. And the riparian owners along the river are against this. 3,150 signatures opposed.
All right, thank you. All right, I see someone online. Jill? Jill, if you want to go ahead and talk. Jill, it looks like you're back on mute. I don't think we can hear you, Jill. Is there anyone else online? All right, one other person. Can't see who that is. Oh, Alex?
Yeah, I'm just wondering, would the proposed underpass connect into 4th Street on the west side? Is that the point of connection to the existing, I'll call it, for lack of a better term, bridge to nowhere on the east side?
Yeah, I can touch base on that. So on the downstream side, which is the east side, it would connect to the existing Riverwalk Trail that was connected, or that was constructed in, that's already constructed in 2022. And then on the west side, there is a trail connection, at 88 grade up to 4th Street to provide a connection there, as well as moving upstream, depending, and exactly where to connect there would depend on, other projects.
So there is a destination and there's a potential for future connection.
Yes.
All right, one more time. Jill, can you try to unmute? All right, is there anyone else online that has questions, comments? All right, is there anyone else in the room? Yes, ma'am.
And my name is Pam Close. My husband and I have been here for about 30-some years, 35 years. I think there's a big misconception about the people who are opposing this project. I've heard nasty comments, not even polite comments, but nasty comments. You know, it's the old people don't want change. That's not true. That's not true at all. The old people, it's all, as Mr. Swadley said to a TV crew, it's about nostalgia. Everybody, you know, they're nostalgic. Bull. That's what I say to that. It isn't about that. I think the idea of a bike path and a pedestrian path in a safe environment is a wonderful idea to connect. I can imagine that would be a wonderful, like, day out with kids, to be able to go and have a safe place to go. I don't have a problem with that. But, and you guys look like you're very smart young men. Obviously, you wouldn't be in the jobs you are in if you didn't like nature, if you didn't have some creativity in you. That's what I'm looking at. Is there not a creative way around this problem? Why an underpass? Why not an overpass? Why not a different way around? The reason that many of us are so worried about this project is that there have been, and we have all kinds of little, studies, and we have lab reports that tell us all the contaminants in the water. And we know for a fact that that mill pond that is by Uniroyal, for years, hundreds of years ago, what did they do with their trash? They threw it in the river. That sediment now is way deep down in the river. And we're going to dig that crap up, and it's going to, you know, the animals that have come, and like Kathy, I think probably is one who said the most, and Miss Stockstead too. You know, in our 35 years, and we live on Lynn Street, which is about a block from the river. Over the years, we never saw an eagle. We never saw cranes. In fact, a friend of mine once called me in the morning and told me I had to look out my window because there was a prehistoric bird at my bird feeder. It was a crane. That was how often we saw cranes. Now, cranes come every year. They go from yard to yard. They have their little, you know, they come visit us. You know, they're not afraid of us. They know they're going to feed out of our bird feeders. We are seeing red fox. We are seeing my husband was on a walk with the dogs. He looked up, there was an eagle on Lynn Street. And now we're seeing more eagles and osprey. And we're concerned that all of this is going to bring down the water level. And where we live, it won't increase our home values. It may very well decrease.
There it was that I raised my hand.
What?
Oh, reactions.
Oh, let me let Jill have. That's my sister-in-law, so you got to let her go.
All right, I just have to make it real clear. I have never said that old people are our problem. I've never said, I just want to make it clear because I've not said anything like that. So It was thrown out there, but thank you for your comments. Jill, I know you raised your hand, you rejoined us. Can you try speaking again? I think we heard you before.
Jill? Can you hear me?
We can hear you, yes.
Oh, yay. Okay. I'll make it short. First of all, I just want to express my disappointment at the timing of this meeting. 5 o'clock. People are driving home from work. They're preparing dinner. They're eating dinner. It seems to me it's like the worst time for you to call this meeting. So I hope that future meetings are held at a more convenient time. Secondly, I want to express my concern about the safety of this trail. I think another person brought up all of the potential traffic that could be on this trail. You had mentioned that one of the criteria for discussing this trail was, does it have a detrimental effect or detrimental to public interest? I would hope that public interest includes public safety. You could have bicyclists.
It does not.
It does not. Well, that's sad, isn't it?
Wetlands, waterways, it's aquatic health, it's the public interest in the riverbed.
Well, I think that safety needs to be brought into. On this path, you could have people hauling their kayaks back. Hello?
Sorry, Jill, somebody unmuted. Keep going.
Okay. On this path, you could have people walking, carrying their kayaks back up to do another run. You could have cyclists. You could have children. You could have tubers. You could have people walking their dog. You could have wheelchair workers. You could have just people walking. This trail is not adequate, nor will it be safe for all of those people to be using this trail at the same time. Thank you.
Thank you, Jill. Is there someone else online that would like to raise their hand or make a comment?
Hi, my name is Danas Kafidi. I just wanted to voice my support for this project, and I just want to say thank you to the staff for all the work they've put into this, from staff from the DNR as well as the city of Stoughton. So thank you all.
Thank you. Anybody else online? All right, we're going to go around the room last time here. I know, would you like to come up? Yep, sir.
I'm Rich Morris. I live on the river south of town and a business owner on Main Street. And I just wanted to give my support to the project. One of the big interests to me, I drive 4th Street every day going to and from work, and the preservation of the powerhouse is a big part of it, and it looks like that this will help that a lot. So I think that's great, and I like the trail aspect, and I can't really trust myself driving, so the less people on 4th Street, the better.
Thank you. Anybody else in the room? Yes, ma'am. Okay.
I commend you for having this meeting today. I agree 5 p.m. is not conducive to anybody but old retired people. But I do have a question though. How many miles, feet, or whatever is this trail? It may have been said in the beginning, but I missed it. Where's Mason when we need him?
Hey. Might need a minute on that. So give me a second, I'll get back to you on that.
Okay. My next question is, I saw those those slides he had. It would really have been nice to have an actual in-hand one to go home with. Now, you're going to tell me, go to your computer and print it off, but you don't want or care that I can't get computers. This is it, unless I go to the library or the senior center. Anyway, but I would like a hard copy of the plan that shows you filling in the lower portion and the upper portion. And when doing that, are you just capping and you're not pulling the silt up? Or are you going to churn up that? I think that's quite a concern of these people, that you're going to churn it all up. My understanding in the past has been things will be capped and it will be kept down. Is that true?
Yeah, so I'll get the trail is going to be about 700 feet long as part of the section proposed as part of this permit application, as well as about 150 feet of a spur trail connecting off from the main trail up to 4th Street. And then, yes, as far as the work shown as part of this permit application, we will be filling in the existing head race and tail race. And so that will be bringing in clean soil material and bringing up that grade. And there's been a number of comments about the existing powerhouse, and we're proposing to fill that area of the tail race directly adjacent to the powerhouse to a higher elevation, up to about the level of the existing 4th Street, and that will help backfill against that the powerhouse and minimize some of the undermining that's occurred there. So hopefully that helps answer those questions.
That's helpful. But one other question, and I posed this to the city of Stoughton: what are you doing about getting people over to Mant Park other than the bridge to nowhere? Is that going to be, and I didn't see it on their proposal, is that going to be along the trail and that they can then ride their bikes over to Mant Park? Is that what's happening?
I'm not totally following your question, but I don't know if it's really relevant to this permit.
Okay, thank you.
Can you go ahead and state your address? We do have a person taking notes online, and I'm going to ask him to send you a copy of the plans from the file.
Okay.
If you did see the notice for the meeting today, it had a little link there to the file on the internet, but they will mail it to you, and in that document it does say if you want a copy of the plans, we can send that to you. So if you give us your address.
Okay, my address, I'm Faith Shuck, Town of Pleasant Springs, on the Town of Pleasant Springs Town Board, and my address is 1616 Spring Road, Stoughton, Wisconsin, and I'm representing my township. Thank you.
All right, thank you.
And I guess real briefly, I can touch base on that, that east side of this portion, the downstream trail will be connecting into that existing Riverwalk trail that is already constructed, that connects to the bridge over the Yahara River to Mant Park. So you will be able to travel from Mant Park, across the bridge, upstream under 4th Street, all as a continuous trail with no at-grade road crossings.
Hi, I'm Mark Holtzman. I've been in this town for over a quarter century, and when I was a younger man living here, taking my kids out fishing, we were fishing by the powerhouse and we caught a northern pike, okay? My son caught this northern pike, we brought it out of the water, and that northern pike had sores all over it. Now, I don't know what caused those sores, if it was a natural bacterial infection or if there was something else in that water. But my question for you is pointedly, after this is done and you catch fish downstream, will you eat the fish? would you eat the fish?
That's a personal question. I'm not going to tell you whether I eat the fish or not.
Because we are compartmentalized and narrowly focused on this whole situation with just this little segment, but it's interconnected to the whole environment. Don't lose sight of that.
And what I'll tell you is Wisconsin DNR issues.
Don't be stupid about it because it's interconnected.
I'm not being, just relax. Wisconsin DNR monitors toxics in our waterways and puts out a booklet about fish advisory consumption guidance. So that's the best we can do. And everybody has to make their own choices on what they eat and what they don't eat. And whether I would eat the fish, it doesn't matter. And whether you would eat the fish, that's what you need to concern yourself with. But I appreciate your comment.
Dealing with public safety. Not just the DNR, people here that live.
Any other comments? Going once, going twice. Anyone else online? All right. If there are no more, I would really like to thank everybody for showing up tonight. I appreciate everybody's comments. I appreciate the dialogue and learning more about the project. Thank you all for taking the time out of your day. I understand that it is the holiday season, that there is no good time of day to have a meeting, but thank you for taking the time and showing up today.